Matthew Heines. I'm a veteran. I'm a veteran of the 82nd Airborne. I took the oath, and I'm here to defend my state.
Okay, CPB officers in Minnesota seized 900 G in counterfeit bills from Chinese shipping container. This in Fox News. Fox News flash top headlines for January 27th, and U.S. Customs Border Protection officers in Minnesota discovered 900,000 in counterfeit $1 bills inside a shipping container originating from China, the agency said in a press release Monday. CPB officers had referred a rail container for a customs exam station inspection on December 14th at International Falls Port of Entry, which connects the cities of International Falls, Minnesota, and Fort Frances, Ontario, Canada. While inspecting the container Friday, CPB officers found 45 cartons of possible counterfeit currency in the form of $1 bills with a total face value of $900,000. The U.S. Secret Service was contacted and determined the currency is counterfeit, the press release said. CPB officers strive every day to protect the U.S. from a variety of threats, Jason Schmeltz, Pembina Area Port Director, said in a statement. Those threats don't always come in the form of terrorists or narcotics, but also in the form of counterfeit currency and other goods that have the potential to harm the economy of the United States. Thanks to the dedication of our officers and our partnership with the Secret Service, we were able to keep this currency from entering into circulation. All right, so in January you have this currency seized. Now let's look at another article, and this article is in The Last Refuge, and it talks about Crump on Floyd, we don't understand. Our old friend Ben Objective something Crump, the defense lawyer for the Floyd family, appears on Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan to discuss the death of George Floyd. It's been a while. Ben does what Ben does, and factually, he's got a goofy cat doing the best he can on behalf of his client. Officer, in quotes deliberately, Derek Chauvin did kill George Floyd. That's not the issue. The issue driving the media narrative surrounds why Officer Derek killed George. Toward the end of the interview, Brennan asked Crump about Derek and George knowing each other. Ben's response, specifically how he phrases the admission, is what's worth watching. Unfortunately, I can't record that, so you'll have to watch it yourself. Hi, Ben. Good to see you again. Oh, and you're right. Nothing makes sense. By now, Ben is discovering that everything around El Neuvo Rodeo, the Mexican cantina and dance club where George and Derek worked, is sketchy. Likely, Ben and Daryl Parks and Crump Esquire, have realized it's better to focus their financial strategy towards reparations from the city of Minneapolis, because this incident hits on something even Crump doesn't want to touch. El Neuvo Rodeo, hereafter ENR, is a front business. Nothing is as it seems. The background ownership of ENR takes you to a shady network of LLCs and the name Omar Investments Incorporated, established 1996. Dig a little deeper and something else becomes evident. The ownership might connect to one or more of three U.S. three-letter agencies. The ownership network has previous interactions with FBI operations in and around Minneapolis. This is not surprising because Minneapolis, Minnesota has more national security operations ongoing than any other community in the country. Various Somali groups are being watched, and anyone can do a Google search to see when those security operations surface in the media. Omar Investments Incorporated owns El Nuevo Rodeo Cantina and nightclub since 1996. The principal of Omar Investments Incorporated is Muna Sabri. In 2001, a close relative, Bassem Sabri, was captured by the FBI in a sting operation. In 2001, FBI agents recorded Sabri giving Heron $5,000 cash intended to curry the lawmaker's support for his development. Sabri was later convicted on 3 bribery counts and fined $75,000. FBI intercept in 2001, there's the capture. That's the asset creation point for U.S. security to find a way to embed within Minneapolis and assist the Sabris along the way. The presented former club owner Maya Santamaria, seen on television, appears to be a purposeful front, a face useful in deflecting attention from the primary owner and operations. With that in mind, the scale of false information in and around the visible event, horrible as it is, creates layers and layers of purposeful misinformation and a need to control what the public sees in the media. As I said before, I prefer to sit this one out. However, it's interesting. If you consider that El Nuevo Rodeo might likely be a front for a 3-letter national security agency, or at the very least, a valuable inside source for domestic intelligence and surveillance, things start reconciling rather quickly. El Nuevo Rancho also looks like a money laundering operation. Part of that laundering operation appears to involve counterfeit currency. This enterprise, writ large, looks like the answer to how a U.S. agency infiltrated the background criminal network in Minnesota to watch and monitor for domestic threats. So there are layers to what is visible and a myriad of interests involved. Officer Derek Chauvin is a 19-year veteran of the Minneapolis Police Department. Derek Chauvin also worked at ENR for 17 years. That timeline puts Derek Chauvin showing up to work security at El Nuevo Rodeo Cantina and Club right after the FBI busts Bassem Sabri. Everyone remembers what intel agencies were doing after 9/11. Recently, when the Wuhan virus hits, the nightclub needs to shut down. By extension, this shuts down any illicit activity maintained by the legit operation. Any activity within a laundering operation would have to be paused. It would look silly, very suspicious if the ENR club bookkeeper was making bank deposits while the business is closed. However, this also means George Floyd was out of work. According to the indictment, on May 25th, 2020, someone called 911 and reported a man bought merchandise from Cup Foods at 3759 Chicago Avenue in Minneapolis, Hennepin County, Minnesota, with a counterfeit $20 bill. At 8:08 p.m., Minneapolis Police Department officers Tom Lane and J.A. Kung arrived with their body-worn cameras activated and running. The officers learned from store personnel that the man who passed the counterfeit was parked in a car around the corner on 38th Street. BWC video obtained by the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension shows the officers approach the car, Lane on the driver's side, Kung on the passenger's. 3 people were in the car. George Floyd was in the driver's seat. A known adult male was in the passenger's seat, and a known adult female was sitting in the back seat. As Officer Lane began speaking with Mr. Floyd, he pulled his gun out and pointed it at Mr. Floyd's open window and directed Mr. Floyd to show his hands. When Mr. Floyd put his hands on the steering wheel, Lane put his guns back in his holster. While Officer Kung was speaking with the front seat passenger, Officer Lane ordered Mr. Floyd out of the car, put his hands on Mr. Floyd, and pulled him out of the car. Officer Lane handcuffed Mr. Floyd. Mr. Floyd actively resisted being handcuffed. Once handcuffed, Mr. Floyd became compliant and walked with Officer Lane to the sidewalk and sat on the ground at Officer Lane's direction. In a conversation that lasted under 2 minutes, Officer Lang asked Mr. Floyd for his name and identification. Officer Lane asked Mr. Lloyd if he was on anything and explained that he was arresting Mr. Lloyd for passing counterfeit currency. The police were called because George Floyd was passing counterfeit $20 bills. Could the way Chauvin and the responders writ large interacted with George Floyd have been an outcropping of concern that Floyd was putting the ENR operation at risk? Read the indictment. Everything was cool until the responding officers attempted to put Floyd in Derek Chauvin's squad car. Floyd is presented as being okay with the arrest, but really didn't want to get in Derek's car. 17 years as a security officer for El Neuvo Rodeo. Was Chauvin the enforcer? Does that explain why everyone seems casual, even responding to the even the responding EMTs? Could the national security angle explain why no prior charges against Chauvin in a 2006 shooting were ever sought? One thing is clear, is attested by Benjamin Crump, Derek Chauvin, and George Floyd knew each other. This was not some random street accident. Arguably, every single person in and around law enforcement and EMT response that day knew each other. I asked this last question in January about counterfeit currency in Minnesota. Very weird. Why would anyone go through the trouble of counterfeiting a dollar bill? Considering time, labor, material, and energy, it costs more to counterfeit a box of dollar bills than an actual real box of dollar bills is worth. Something sketchy here. Who would go through a cost-prohibitive process to counterfeit dollar bills? A national security agency conducting an operation with little interest in the profit dynamic, that's who. Okay, if you'll bear with me, one more. This is taken from Twitter, and it is from Weatherine WS. George Floyd was a hit job to protect a drug trafficking, money laundering operation at El Neuvo Rodeo. Owned by Omar Investments, Muna Sabri, relative Bassem Sabri, busted on by FBI on 3 bribery counts in 2001. 9/11 intel agency scrambles to monitor domestic threats. Creates asset point for U.S. security to embed in Minneapolis to monitor Somalis. El Nuevo Rodeo Restaurant Club, possibly involved in money laundering, drug trafficking, FBI, CIA, MS-13. Derek Chauvin and George Floyd worked together at Club Chauvin for 17 years, right after Sabri's busted by FBI. Fast forward to 2020, Wuhan virus shuts down all restaurants, clubs in Minneapolis. By default, shut down illegal activity by legitimate operation, resulting in any activity in laundering counterfeit deposits by Club Booker would be suspicious while business is closed, resulting in George Floyd being out of work, no pay. Police called to Cup Foods where George Floyd reportedly passing fake $20 bill. Chauvin responds to call and executes hit on Floyd for potentially putting El Nuevo Rodeo operation at risk. So there you have it. How many people have died? How many people have been injured? How many people have lost property? How many people's lives have been destroyed because of this? And what is coming out now is that this is something that I've been following for a couple days now. And 2 days ago, I asked the question, was Derek Chauvin a Democrat? Because he was operating, or he was living in Florida while he's voting in Minnesota, or living in Minnesota while he's voting in Florida. And at the same time, I asked, is Derek Chauvin a federal agent? Because only a federal agent would be able to vote in Florida as a federal agent with no real home. That would be the only way that he'd be allowed to do that. And why would he risk his career or anything else just to vote illegally? So that's one of the things that I've been asking about. So then, bam, the next day, we get this information that back in January, there was a pallet of money that was uncovered, dollar bills from China. Then you have this George Floyd passing a counterfeit dollar bill. Now, were they connected? We don't know. but there was a counterfeiting operation. We also know that the Somalis were being monitored by a number of federal agencies as a terrorist group. And in another article, I have the owners of that restaurant or bar listed as Jordanian and definitely as terrorists. So whether that's true or not, I don't know, and I'm not going to say it is, but this is definitely a deep state operation. George Floyd was not killed by police brutality. He was killed because he was going to blow the whistle on an operation. And we don't know exactly what happened, but based on his resistance in that car, he told Derek Chauvin he was going to blow the lid on the whole deal if he tried to arrest him. And that's what led to his death. So why did Derek Chauvin feel that he could go ahead and kill this guy in cold blood in front of everybody? Because he works for the deep state. Now, if that doesn't scare the crap out of you, nothing will. So if you're out protesting about the tragic death of George Floyd, and you're not mentioning anything about the deep state, these people that are really controlling the government and the media that failed to investigate any of this incident and only was interested in inciting riots and inciting death and terror, then you need to, well, we see what they did. But anyway, you need to really ask yourself the question, am I really being bamboozled by a lying media? And the fact of the matter is, apparently so. And this is one of the biggest tragedies as it will come out in American history. And the media is completely and absolutely complicit in all of it. So I'm Matthew Heines, and I'm running for Congress because I'm going to put an end to all this. And we are going to hold people accountable. And the people who are out protesting right now, I just want to ask you to just sit back, take a deep breath, take a chill pill, do whatever you do. But let's wait until we get the facts on this, because what it looks like is this looks like another one of our government, tragedies, government created tragedies that the media feeds off of. So this isn't about race or anything else. This is about a twisted media and a twisted government playing us for a bunch of suckers. Well, stop being a sucker. Vote for me. I'm Matthew Heines. I'm running for the 1st Congressional District in Washington State. We'll see you on the next Congressional Candidate Briefing.
My name is Matthew Heines. I'm a veteran. I'm a veteran of the 82nd Airborne. I took the oath, and I'm here to defend my state.
Congressman Susan DelBene has been in office since 2012. Using her substantial financial resources, thanks to Microsoft, and her $84 million fortune, she has been able to continually maintain an office where people still have little idea what she's done. Well, she's learned to dance around, and she's learned to do all the political maneuvers you have to do to keep getting reelected. Well, Susan DelBene, it's time for you to go.